It's a beautiful fall day here in Harvard Square. My name is Jabari Morgan. I am the Chatman. Welcome to Chatman Booth. So I was at work a while ago and somebody was like, "Oh, Jabari, have you heard of this book, Jabari Jumps?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about it." And she said it was a blogger I was talking to. And she said, "You should order this book. You'd really enjoy it." So I ordered the book immediately from, I'm not going to say Amazon because I'm so ashamed to use it. People peeing in bottles at work. That's something you should save for your home because you don't want to, get up in the middle of the night. Uh, but anyway, I think I'm going to just take a crack at this book. We're just going to take a crack at a couple pages. And clearly, since I'm Jabari and this kid's Jabari, I'm going to be comparing my life to this kid's life, all right? So, the jacket. Jabari is definitely ready to jump off the diving board. All right, that matches. That matches. We're matching. He's finished his swimming lessons. I still want to take those. He's passed his swim tests. It's just maybe he needs to do some stretches first. Looks easy, says Jabari, watching the other kids take their turns. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, Jabari jumps. Page 1. Oh, look, the kid's already got a nice set of trunks. He's got goggles. Had one of those once. All right, here we go. I'm jumping off the diving board today, Jabari told his dad. Oh, yeah. So this Jabari's got a dad, huh? Really, said his dad. I did have a father. The diving board was high and maybe a little scary, but Jabari had just finished his swimming lessons and passed his swim test, and now he was ready to jump. All right, yeah, I got a birthday coming up next week. That seems to match. There's all sorts of things I'm edging towards the edge of the diving board on. I'm a great jumper, said Jabari, so I'm not scared at all. I'm scared when I jump, but I jump anyway. Take some time to get there. Jabari watched the other kids climb the long ladder. They walked all the way out to the end of the board, as big as tiny bugs. Then they stood on the edge. They spread their arms and bent their knees and sprang up, up, up. Then they dove down, 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 splash. Well, it looks easy, Jabari said. But when his dad squeezed his hand, Jabari squeezed back. Jabari stood at the bottom of the ladder. He looked up. "You can go before me if you want," he told the kid behind him. "Oh, how gracious of you, Jabari." I need to think about what kind of special jump I'm going to do. This Jabari is also clearly a Libra. Jabari thought and thought. And I'm just going to skip ahead because it's like 8 more pages of Jabari thought and thought and thought. If he's anything like me. I'll read the middle later, not now. He took a deep breath, spread his arms, bent his knees. Then he sprang up, up, off the diving board, flying. Jabari hit the water with a splash. Bringing back a lot of memories. Down, down, down he went, and then back up. Whoosh. Oh my God, the ending. Jesus. So, I learned to swim when I was 11 or 12, and I learned to swim in Evans Plunge in Hot Springs, South Dakota. So Hot Springs, South Dakota, it's built in the name. And so they made a little water park. Thermopolis, Wyoming is awesome. I kind of think those waters are more medicinal, but yeah, water park. And then this dude, this Jabari's dad, passed away when Jabari was a baby, and my mother never touched another man. But occasionally she would try and get male influences in my life, most of whom I would reject, possibly because I knew I was gay, and none of my mother's people were accepting of that. But this guy, Dave Schmoller was his name. He used to be a hippie, and then he became, a religious fanatic like my mother. But he worked for Forest Service, and we went on this big trip with a bunch of people, and he made the offer to teach me how to swim. My older brother could swim like a goddamn fish, but I trusted this guy, and I let him, support me in the shallow water as I learned the moves that I needed to make. And I was full of fear and dread, but it didn't take that long before I was actually swimming, like moving through the water without walking in it. And it was and remains liberating. However, from that time, age 11 to age, I think, 31, like 2 decades passed, more than two, a little more than 2 decades, and I only swam the same way. I knew but one move, and for 20 years I would never swim in water that I couldn't stand up in, right? And then I fell in love, and succumbed to pressure from my partner's family to relocate, and we relocated to a place that had a swimming pool with a deep end. And so it's 2 decades where I'm not a deep end man. It's not going to happen. Well, I am, but not in regards to swimming. Um, but not in regards to swimming. And so one summer day, we're in this pool, and I'm challenged by this boyfriend that I trust more than I probably trusted anyone. Like, this can be done. You can be a deep end swimmer, and it can happen today, and you're not going to drown. And so 20 years after I learned how to swim, I started jumping off in the deep end for the first time in my life, not knowing that I was going to make it to the shallow end, but willing to take that chance. So unlike this Jabari, I still haven't done a diving board, but I do now venture into deep waters. And it's more than a metaphor. It was a demonstration to the universe of my willingness to be in the deep end in life, which of course I've always been, but of course I wanted to push myself more. The other thing that just getting a little bit into this book reminded me of, and I'll be damned, I carry this picture with me everywhere I go, and I noticed at the bus stop, getting on the 86, while I was waiting to come down here, I noticed I didn't have the picture on me for the first time in months. I carry the picture in my Llewellyn's guide, but it's a picture taken of me after having jumped out of an airplane for, I think, my 20th birthday under extraordinary circumstances. I can't remember if I've told you this story before, but it had to have been a little bit illegal because we weren't able to reach the proper altitude because we were on a plane built for one person, but there were 4 people on it. And I jump out in tandem with the fellow that invited me on this thing, and then his buddy jumps out, and his buddy had a camera, whatever the dinosaur equivalent of a GoPro is, had this thing strapped to his GD helmet, and filmed me jumping out of a plane. And I'll tell the story more later, perhaps in front of someone else. But like, you could just open the door and jump out of the plane. Like, I had to get far enough away from the tail of the plane to release because it was such a small plane. When I was reading this book just now, I thought about that and that picture in that I carry in my bag of me in the sky, nothing directly above me, below me, and on a clear day you could see forever. It was absolutely wonderful. And much like that swimming pool, I remember with this skydive jump that I did, I remember sort of asking myself, boy, do I feel like I'm going to die today? And I didn't particularly have an answer, but I did have an answer when I asked myself, do I feel like the guy that's strapped to my back is going to die today? And I was like, no, I don't think he's going to die today, so I think I'm just going to jump out of this plane. Whatever gets you there. Harvard Square, Chatman booth. I do a lot of different things to pay my rent, but I am an artist. That's how I identify myself, and this to me, what we're doing right now, is art. But I came from a place where being an artist was derided.
A lot of performers and actors are actually quite shy. I myself am much more comfortable on a stage talking to hundreds of people. I'm more comfortable doing that than I am, in most one-on-one or one-on-two or one-on-three or one-on-four interactions. I refused to film on location this weekend because I didn't want to muster up enthusiasm over being single. So instead, I'm going to continue what we talked about before a couple of weeks ago and try and get just more comfortable being with you and talking to you.
And so I grew up in a very small town in South Dakota, the most beautiful place in the world in my mind, the most beautiful people in the world. But like to devote, my life to art was not a popular choice at the time that I was there.
When I was in Peru, my genetic ancestors from sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa, said a couple of things to me. They were very funny and very serious and very everything, but they were like, hey, they told me I was a writer before I ever considered myself to be one. And I took that information home and did not do what I thought I was supposed to do with it, which was write some kind of opus or play or movie or this or that. I just started writing to people that I know. And it's turned out to have a measurable impact in a positive way on my existence and theirs. And when I want to be as comfortable chatting with people on camera as I am off camera, because those off camera chats are what inspired the show. I just sit on the street and talk to people, and my God, it just changed the course of everything. I've told you the stories before, but I've sat down with a sign to chat with people on the street that I meet them, and then after a certain amount of time, I realize, or I understand, I'm going to know this person until the day that I die.
What do you think when you hear someone in their 20s, like you were, talk about wanting to go into into art for a living, to devote their lives to it? There's so much resistance from families of people who want to devote their life to art.
It's a big risk. It's a risk. There's no doubt about it. You have to be really good, and you have to find your way to go into competition and to win. I mean, it's not nothing. But it's wonderful.
Happiest hour.
The happiest hour.
The happiest hour.
Besides all those
Quick.
mental questions you asked me that made me reconsider my entire life.
Okay, so to wrap it up, thank you.
No, thank you. Don't thank me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, the situation is we're in people's living rooms right now. I live through my life in long...
As most people tend to do.
In long stretches, I'm like, all right, this is what I would do, and these are the results.
But
and
what
this
would
is what
J-Law
Jennifer
do?
Lawrence do.
Yeah.
And then I do
And
it.
then you weigh it against what would Meryl do.
Oh.
And then you figure it out.
I do.
And we always go with Meryl, obviously.
Ultimately, we have to go
We
with
have
Meryl.
to. It's like the responsible thing to do.
She's gonna be in Big Little Lies season 2, and
I couldn't
she's
get through the
playing
first
fucking...
season.
Oh, it was
I
like
saw
getting
3
stabbed
episodes.
in
No, that's
the
what I'm
heart
saying.
over and over and
I
over
was
and
like
over
sobbing.
again.
I was like, this is too relative. It's too real. I can't watch this.
But if you keep watching it,
I read the book, and the book's amazing, and I love the cast. I love all that, but
you gotta keep watching it. You gotta keep
couldn't.
watching it. Because have you ever been to Monterey, California? The opening sequence of that show.
I've
My
been around here.
ex-boyfriend-
I don't know if I've been to actual Monterey, but I've been to like Santa Barbara,
or Carmel.
Santa
Yeah,
Cruz,
it's
Laguna,
amazing.
Newport.
It's kind of
Oh, it's
like
beautiful. It looks like if you took like a Windows wallpaper and just lived in it.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, how is that real? How is that an unfiltered viewing of life.
It's sort of like New Orleans. But like the first time I went to New Orleans, I was like, oh, everything anyone has ever written about this city is true.
I've
The
always
vampires,
wanted to
the
go.
everything.
No, that's my I love stuff like that.
You'd be amazing there.
For the past
and the
like
same
8
thing
years,
is true with
I've been saying like
Carmel and the Big Little Lies. Like you watch her driving over that bridge in the beginning, and if you've been through there, you're like,
who is that? Is that Zoe Kravitz? Is that Shailene Woodley? Is that Shailene Woodley?
But,
So
but
proud of
fir-
them
first of
all.
all,
They
you
all
have to
deserve
watch
it.
it, and secondly,
It's hard.
Meryl Streep is on the second
I know, like
season. She's
someone's
playing this
mom.
dude. And she's going to be a holy terror.
Name a time she
I am
hasn't been.
so-
Miranda Priestley is my spirit animal. Florals for spring groundbreaking. Like, put that with my hologram on my tombstone. That's what I want.
You would really enjoy the show.
I know you say that, but I've watched it and I haven't enjoyed it. So
They're at this
the
point,
acting's amazing.
contrary
and
to
I
popular
salute-
belief, at this point, like being a black dude and being a gay dude, it's probably like the most enriching and rewarding experience that you could have on
in
planet
this
Earth
time,
at this
I
time.
believe it.
Yeah, but other than that, it's like it's being Reese Witherspoon or watching.
Well, that's what I'm very aware of the
Like, I
privilege
can't-
that has been given to me as a blonde white woman, but I will never let that be my identity in a way. Like whenever I see the signs who are like white women voted for Trump, it breaks my heart because what are we as probably the most spoon-fed women in the country? How are we letting that reflect on the rest of our gender by doing
Agreed.
things like that?
And we gave you this power versus we have this power, and I feel like
And was
big
this
big
something I
little
shouldn't have
lies
said?
is like we have this power.
Yeah.
There's an equality to the
Inclusion rider.
to the
As Francis McDormand
inclusion
said,
rider.
inclusion rider.
People have been asking me what that is, and I was like,
Oh my God.
I know. I have
Michael
always
B.
known
Jordan,
what that is.
my dear
I have
soul.
always known what that is.
Yeah. And Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer have this agreement where they don't work on a project unless the other one is getting paid the same rate. And then the males in that role, if they're supporting or the same, or leading, they'll get the same as well. And so I know that because it's Hollywood, we glamorize it and detach it from our senses as being an actual problem. Because it's like, oh, you're like
I'm with you.
millionaire. And you're gonna yell about a guy like touching your on the subway. You know? It's hard to be like settle down. But any time a woman feels violated or uncomfortable, that is a time to speak up, and it can't be done anymore. Because I've been in so many situations where I've had someone's hand on my leg that shouldn't have been there. Someone like tussle my hair that their hand shouldn't be there. And I've just been like, like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Time's up.
It is up, and I love the correlation and the coming together. Like,
Well, Reese Witherspoon started it. That's why when we were talking about Big Little Lies,
yeah.
it's just, and it's,
And she made
You
a
need-
decision. She was like, "Oh my God, I could make this money. I could make these movies."
or I could start my own production
Or-
company and give women speaking roles.
And
I
I think we should give this show a chance. And let me say
Absolutely.
that it was
Absolutely.
out. It was out for
It
over
won
a year
every
before
award it
I
could.
bothered to see it. And when I saw it, I was as a gay, as a black, as a Californian, as a like it speaks to and
The time.
and the ferocity in which it approaches the ignorance of wealth for wealth's sake.
Yep.
It's absolutely crazy.
Absolutely.
And Meryl Streep
I can't wait for the audition.
has agreed to. All right, so
Speaking of time's up.
Time's up. Chatman booth. This was fantastic. Thank you for joining the happiest hour with Ellen Goldhammer.
At Ellen Chilada. It's
and
Ellen
Chatman
plus
Booth.
Chilada.
At
Like
Chatman Booth on Twitter.
ChatmanBooth.
And how do we find you on, like, give somebody your Twitter?
Yeah, so it's Ellen Chilada.
Gelada?
Not yeah. I know. It's not
Chelada?
like Ellen, Ellen, and then the
Crevassa?
word enchilada, but the en overlaps. Watermelon was taken, so I had to resort to the next en food, and so El Enchilada was born. And you're welcome.
You will see her again. You will
I
see
hope so.
me
I
again
hope so.
soon. God is blessed. God
Thank
bless.
you for
Thank you for joining
tolerating.
us for Pillow Talk.
Okay, so I have described in a limited way the film that we just saw. Have described in a limited way the Castle Square Tenants organization that put on this movie premiere, and where Kate teaches. And this is the director of the film that we just saw, and my soulmate. And I just, my eyes are hurting from the tears that I
I
have
had to
shed.
take my contacts out just now, actually. I can't see it.
So thank you. I want to say that it was really phenomenal to watch children watching this, young people. I was impressed. There were gray hairs in the audience. Like this, what is this film about?
There was definitely like a point last summer, like Casey was moving to LA to record a few songs, and this documentary was like, there was a final cut, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I was like, it's fine, like, it is what it is, I'm not gonna put it out, like, it's fine. And it actually wasn't until I started teaching here at Castle Square, plug.
Yeah.
This is a community space for youth, the teens in front of you. We do a lot of amazing programming around art and film, and I started teaching film and photography through a social justice lens here last summer, and it really reinvigorated a lot in me and reminded me like why I do this, you know? I think there's something about being able to put a camera in the hands of someone who's in high school and tell them and show them how to go make art with it. That is so empowering on both sides.
Yeah.
And yeah, so also storytelling is really cool, you know, like to echo what Ricky said in the documentary, like it's a lot of times like showing young people how they can tell their stories is really neat, because a lot of times what they come back to you with is like, well, that story's been told. Like, I'm not gonna tell that story, it's been told. And it's like, no, you haven't told that story. And that's what representation is, right? That's what positive narratives are and accurate narratives are. And so teaching here and working here and being in this community really got me back into working on this film. And it's the physical space in front of you that literally manifested it, which is a meta thing, but it's definitely what inspired me to finish this. So burnout's real, but without like this community and the communities that I have in my life, I couldn't have gotten through it, and I'm so, so grateful that I did.
So I went to the first Black Panther conversation organized by Professor Ito that had Joy, who's in the audience, as well as Professor Taronis, and they were talking a lot about the Black Panther from their own perspectives. Like Joy does algorithmic justice, and Professor Taronis, he does a lot of research on like film and literature, and he teaches a class called Folk Lit. And so one of the conversations or topics that we talked about towards the end was the different perspectives about like Blackness in the Black Panther, and a lot of different people had different takes on how they saw the character of Killmonger, who is Black American, and they were very disappointed in the ways that Black Americans were portrayed compared to Wakandans, and some argued that it was respectability politics, and so that was one of the things I kind of wanted to touch on in my presentation. So one, I want to kind of start off by giving a little overview of like what I do. So I study history. I studied history in undergrad. I studied Afro-Caribbean history, specifically the post-World War II period in London. And I looked at the wave of West Indian migrants who moved to London during the period between 1948 and 1962 for undergrad. And so a lot of what I looked at was like the creation of a Black political identity by Caribbean migrants in London. There's a lot of different people who are involved, like Claudia Jones and Marcus Garvey's first wife, Amy Garvey, and Marcus Garvey actually married her bridesmaid, another Amy Garvey. So that's a little historical scandal going on there. So one of the things that's like really important to me is like contextualizing and seeing the way like intersectionality. A lot of times it's coined with Kimberly Crenshaw Jones Williams, a professor of history as well as a law professor who coined the term intersectionality in 1989, I believe. But one of the kind of first people to really kind of come about with the idea of like intersectionality was a Black woman named Claudia Jones. She was a West Indian migrant from Trinidad who moved to the U.S. when she was 8 years old, and she's actually deported from the U.S. in 1954 because she was really involved in the U.S. Communist Party, and she was the secretary for the Communist Party, and she wrote a lot about being triply oppressed as a Black woman, working class person. And so the idea of, and this was in the 1940s, she wrote about this, and if you're interested in learning more about like her writing, I'll touch more on it. But one of the things that I think is really important about Claudia Jones was that she's really critical of the military-industrial complex, and I think that plays a huge part in the Black Panther film, because when you think about the character of Killmonger and that he was involved in the military, and the fact that he grew up in Oakland, and like from my own perspective is like I'm very critical of like the U.S.'s use of like working class Black and brown people as well as working class white Americans as like soldiers. And so Killmonger was probably that generation or that demographic that they were targeting, which is like working class people from Oakland. And so Claudia Jones is very critical of the fact that like the military industrial complex really much involved helping a lot of the warmongers or people who were going out to kind of pursue war as a means of like financial gain. So a lot of like Wall Street banks and a lot of people who have a lot of, I guess, investments in the construction firms that go out when you're destroying these countries. And you think about Killmonger as a character, like he was created with the intention of going out and destroying and destabilizing different communities. And so that was something that I was thinking a lot about, was just like his role as like a Black, probably someone who was a working class, and he's also of African descent, Wakandan descent. And particularly like looking at his father, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, but his father was Wakandan by birth and was royalty of the Wakandan Wakandan crown, but at the same time he was very critical of the fact that like Wakanda didn't get intervened in the issues that were the oppression of Black people across the globe. And so I think that it's really important to kind of like separate out and like tackle the different identities and ethnicities that are coming into play. Because I'm American, so our access to the media serves as kind of like the lens for which a lot of people are their ideas of what Blackness is being prescribed, or our understanding of Blackness, because it's what they're seeing on television and film. And I was going to use a quote from Chinamande Adichie's Americana, where she talks a lot about how a lot of Nigerians, their perception of Blackness is very like much skewed based off of like the American perception of like the lens of like media that America's like producing. And so I think in the film, not directly saying who Killmonger's mom or his mother was, kind of offers an opportunity to see his mother as Black Atlantic, so she could be Caribbean, or she could be Latin American, Afro-Latina, or Afro-Latinx, or she can be from Afro-Canadian, because there's a huge wave of people from Nova Scotia, and a lot of the relationships between Blackness on this side of the Atlantic. A lot of people are not familiar with slavery. Only 300,000 enslaved people arrived in the U.S. The other 12 to 16 million arrived in Latin America and the Caribbean. And so I think by kind of like unpacking and seeing Killmonger as being a part of like the Black seeing him as like a black figure rather than just seeing him as like an African American figure really offers this opportunity to like challenge and challenge the perception of blackness in media